Good morning, everybody. This is Sean Cecil, and today I'm going to teach you how to ensure that you never have to be paralyzed by fear again. So first off, why is this so important, right? Because, some people are like, oh, wow, well, fear is a big part of my life and I need to overcome it. But some people don't realize how much of an effect that it has on them. So fear is the thing that stands in the way of you doing what you know you need to do to get the things that you want in life. Last time when we were talking about people who are stuck in their jobs and they're settling and all this kind of stuff, fear is the thing that keeps you in that situation, right? Fear is the thing that keeps you from having conversations that you know you need to have. Fear is the thing that keeps you from doing what you know you need to do. Fear is the thing that keeps you from pursuing your dreams. If you knew that you could do it, you wouldn't be afraid of failing, right? And some people, they're not just scared of failing, they're scared of success too, right? You can have a fear of success. Right? Fear is the thing that keeps you trapped and stuck and keeps you from growing into the person who you can be, right? So fear is something that you really want to be able to deal with. And here's the thing is that fear is emotional. It is not logical, right? There is caution, right? Which is a logical, hey, I'm going to think this out. And a lot of people think that fear is caution. They think that the fear is logical. Fear is not logical, right? And it's ironic because some of the best thinkers out there, some of the most intelligent people you'll ever meet are the ones who are most paralyzed by fear, right? So these are people who pride themselves on being logical, on thinking things through, on not being emotional, on making the best decision and taking into account all of the variables, right? But they're falling into a trap that's emotional in nature. Why? Why is it that people who are so focused on being logical and thinking things through end up having this huge flaw in their decision making where they magnify the negatives and they don't count the positives, and they can't really do that risk reward balance very well? Well, the reason is because the emotion of fear can use your own cognitive faculties against you. Fear will turn your brain and your intellect against you, right? So you're trying to outthink your own brain, which leads to a stalemate commonly called analysis paralysis, right? You can't outthink yourself. Right? So you've got the emotion on one side, you've got the desire on the other side. So the fear versus the desire, and both of them are using the brain against each other. And then you get a stalemate and then you take no action. And here's the thing, for fear, no action is a win, right? For you, no action is not a win, right? So how do you win? Well, so the most important thing is to see fear for what it is, right? You've got to understand that fear is not you, right? Is not you at all. This is not your own thought processes. This is not your own rationality. It is an enemy hiding in your mind, right? Fear is also a liar, right? So it always creates this giant worst case scenario, right? In the hopes of shutting you down before you can logically evaluate the consequences. This is why I said, hey, listen, if you take no action, fear won, right? That's what it wants, right? So a stalemate is a win for fear. A draw is a win for fear, right? It's like a poker player who goes all in on every hand. If you fold every time, you will lose that game, right? So you have to play the game, and you can play to win by asking good questions. This is how you stop fear, is you ask good questions. So the first question to ask is simple. So what? Right? This is one of my favorite questions. Somebody will come to me like, oh my God, this thing's going to happen, and so on and so forth. And I'll just be like, so what? Right? So this is funny because fear tricks you into shutting down your brain and just looking away, right? It tricks you into just stopping, right? And because of that, you often miss that whatever event is feared really isn't that bad, right? So when you ask, so what? You can see whether there are truly consequences that are worth being concerned about. So if there aren't those kinds of consequences, if you realize that the consequences actually aren't that big a deal, well, then fear is defanged. But even if there are consequences that are serious, at least you've taken a step forwards because you've identified the fear beneath the fear, right? So there's this surface level fear, and then there's a fear underneath it, and sometimes it goes a couple layers deep. And so when you ask, so what, you get closer to the real fear at the bottom, right? So you can just keep asking, so what, until you get rid of all the masks and you see what the real fear is. Right? So let me give you guys an example of this, right? So imagine, right, that, somebody's thinking about going and starting their own business, and, they're afraid of, oh, well, if I make this business decision, it may be good, it may be bad, I don't really know, right? So one fear they might have, they're like, oh, well, I'm afraid of making the wrong decision, right? Or I'm afraid of spending this money, or I'm afraid of picking the wrong, supplier, provider, or whatever, right? So let's say they ask, so what? And they get down to the bottom and they realize that what they're really afraid of is looking stupid at a family dinner when they have to tell people that they made a bad decision and lost some money, right? But at the end of the day, if that's what's stopping you, right, that's silly, right? You have the choice between building your business and building your dream, or like looking foolish at a dinner, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Right? And you realize that the fear there is blowing something trivial way out of proportion. Right? Now, on the other hand, if we're looking at something serious, right, you might say, okay, well, hey, listen, if I make this decision, like this is going to, have a big effect on my family's finances, and, it's possible that my wife may leave me. Okay, well, now we have a serious consequence, right? And now we know what the real fear is, and we can dive deeper and we can address that, right? So the next question to ask is the real fear even remotely realistic, right? Even remotely. So fear blows everything way out of proportion, and it causes you to entertain risks that are negligible, right? So this is why people are afraid of flying but not driving, right? Even though the statistics are very clear that driving is the bigger risk by a long ways. People are really scared that the plane's going to crash and they're going to die, right? Just because they've been in more cars than they have planes. And so their brain thinks, oh, this is okay. There's no emotional fear associated with the car. Even if they've actually been in a car crash, there's normally not an emotional fear associated with the car because they're used to it, right? Because they're still alive. Whereas with a plane, if they haven't been in a plane a lot, even though the statistics are way better, like fear will blow it way out of proportion. So you've got to ask, is this even realistic? And I'll give you an example of a client that I was working with. So, she was thinking about making a business decision, and she was afraid that, if she made this business decision and it didn't go well, that her husband might leave her. But, we start asking, is this even remotely plausible? And she's like, well, no, he's actually told me that he fully supports me and everything that I do. And she realized that the fear was just an illusion, right? It wasn't even plausible. It wasn't even on the table, right? It was just, fear conjuring up these shadows, right? And these fake things, right? To stop her, right? Again, remember, fear is a liar, right? So the final question is something that you only have to ask yourself if you haven't dissolved the fear with those other two, right? So if so what, or, or the other one of saying, is this even realistic? If that's gotten rid of it, great. If not, then ask yourself this. So let's say that the real fear, the fear underneath the fear, becomes true. What do I do to recover and get on the right path? Okay. So having a fallback plan and a contingency that you could truly accept in your heart deprives fear of its power. And the reason for this is that fear ultimately relies on primal instincts that have a direct association with death. The human mind links the unknown to death, right? So the human mind says, well, if this horrible thing happens, oh, you're going to die, right? Like that's what it's saying in your unconscious. So when you shine a light and you can prove to yourself that you're going to be alive and okay, and you'll be able to recover, then fear can no longer draw on that paralyzing terror because you've changed the worst case scenario. And you can make a calculated decision instead of freezing because, there's some tiny chance that you might make an error, right? You can actually take action and actually make the right call, right? I barely even think about the mistakes I've made along the way because in my mind, it's fine to take a wrong turn on a journey that's truly worth it, right? You just get back on track, just like I talked about. What's not fine is to stay in a situation that is unacceptable because the risk factor there is 100%, right? It's an unacceptable situation. You're guaranteeing yourself misery. That risk is 100%, right? That's the worst thing you can do, right? That's the truth that fear hides from you. The devil is still the devil, right? So the reason is I'm sharing all of this with you because there are these certain pivotal moments in your life when you're going to have to choose between fear and opportunity, right? Those decisions will determine whether you soar to your dreams and beyond, or whether you end up as a shadow of what you could have been. And you can never, never, never make those decisions from a place of fear. Never, right? That's why I'm giving you this training, because taking courageous steps has opened up new doors and raised my life to a new level. And it's going to do the same thing for you once you know how to overcome fear. So use these 3 questions, get rid of the fear, and then make the right call, right? So guys, I've got one final video for you tomorrow where I'm going to show you how you can be out of your burnout job and on a fulfilling career path in just 100 days. And yes, I know that that sounds like a short period of time, but it's totally doable. It's been done a lot. I'm going to show it to you tomorrow, right? So comment below with what you learned from today's video, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a good one. Bye.